Imagine for a moment that every desire you hold, every dream you've nurtured in secret, every hope that flutters in the quiet chambers of your heart has already been fulfilled. Not in some distant tomorrow, not in some far-off universe, but now, in this very instant. This is the first step, the principle upon which all creation rests. Assume it's done. Assume with unwavering certainty that what you desire is already yours. Do not entertain the thought of how or when. These are the devices of the untrained mind, distractions that tether your imagination to the impossible. When you assume, truly assume, the world aligns itself to your imagination. The world, though it appears solid and immutable, is but a reflection of your inner state. What you believe, what you feel as true within, manifests as your reality without. Too many wander through life, waiting for conditions to become favorable, waiting for evidence, waiting for proof, believing that their dream is something external that must first exist outside themselves before they can claim it. They are trapped in the illusion of causality, thinking the world moves according to circumstances rather than imagination. But listen carefully. The world does not create your state of being, it obeys it. It bends, it shifts, it molds itself according to the assumptions you dwell upon. Your mind is not merely a receiver of life, it is the active force that forms life. Every law, every principle, every element in existence is subject to the imagination of man. Now, let us examine the power of assumption. What does it mean to assume? To assume is not a wishful thought or a fleeting fantasy. It is to inhabit the state of the fulfilled desire. It is to feel with your entire being that what you have longed for is not a future possibility but a present reality. Suppose you desire wealth, recognition, or love. If you go about your day wondering when these things will arrive, you remain in the realm of lack. You keep your mind tethered to absence. But if you assume they are already yours, if you live as though the desire is accomplished, the world immediately begins to rearrange itself. Circumstances appear that match your inner state. People, opportunities, coincidences, all respond to the state you assume. Some may object, saying, "But I see no change. The world remains as it is." To them I say, do not look at the evidence outside. The evidence is deceptive. The world outside is only a mirror of your persistent inner assumption. The law does not fail, but your attention does. Many assume only fleetingly or with doubt, and so they experience only fleeting manifestations. Assume with fullness. Enter into the feeling of the wish fulfilled and dwell there as naturally as breathing. Let it saturate your consciousness until it is no longer a thought, but the very rhythm of your life. When you do this, the world will inevitably obey. Let us delve deeper into the nature of feeling. Thought alone is not enough. Thought without feeling is a lifeless seed. The world does not respond to intellectual understanding alone. It responds to the inner reality that you feel. Feeling is the secret ingredient. Feel that your desire is real. Imagine the completion of your goals vividly as you would experience it physically. Hear the words that would be spoken. See the scenes that would unfold. Taste the victory as though it is in your mouth. Let your imagination create the sensory richness of the fulfilled state. Then, cease all efforts to manipulate the outer world. Do not argue, do not plan, do not strategize. Your task is complete when your inner world is fully convinced. The outer world, being obedient to your inner state, will move to reflect it. Consider the law of mental causation. Every effect in the world first exists as a cause within the mind. Nothing comes into being externally before it is conceived internally. When you assume, you are planting the seed of the external reality in the fertile soil of your imagination. Your assumption is a blueprint. The world is the architect. The universe conspires to fulfill the reality that your consciousness accepts as true. Nothing can resist the force of an unwavering inner conviction. Do not think that you are constrained by the physical conditions around you. They are but echoes of past assumptions, waiting to be rewritten. You have the power to rewrite the script of your life in any direction you desire. It is crucial to understand that time is a servant of assumption. Many believe in linear progression, that one must wait for the days, weeks, or years before seeing results. But the inner reality exists in the eternal now. When you assume your desire is fulfilled, you bypass the illusion of sequential events. You enter a state where the end has already occurred. In this state, your imagination is not a mere fantasy. It is the living reality from which all physical events flow. The world cannot resist the assumption of its creator. To live from the end is to acknowledge that the world is malleable, pliable, and responsive to the consciousness that imagines it. Now, imagine the practical applications of this principle. Suppose you desire a new career, a loving relationship, or abundant health. Begin not by planning the steps, not by negotiating with the world, but by assuming the state you wish to experience. See yourself working in the role, thriving in the relationship, enjoying robust health. Feel the satisfaction, the joy, the relief, and the gratitude. Then carry yourself in the world as though nothing can be different. Walk with confidence, speak with certainty, act with the calm assurance of fulfillment. Your life will begin to reflect the inner reality you maintain. Doors will open, opportunities will appear, and the circumstances will shift. You are not changing the world, you are awakening it to what is already your assumption. Some struggle with doubt. They fear that assuming before seeing is foolish, that it is naive to act as if the desired state exists. Here is the key. Doubt is the only enemy. Doubt arises from attention placed on the present evidence, on the lack and absence that seem real to the senses. To overcome doubt, you must redirect your focus entirely to the inner state of fulfillment. Guard your imagination jealously. Do not allow external conditions to disturb it. Assume and persist. Persist with the calm, unwavering certainty of a mind that knows no failure. As long as you remain faithful to the assumption, the outer world will conform. Consider the stories of those who have mastered this principle. They did not wait for circumstances to align. They did not ask the world for permission. They assumed, and in doing so, the world rearranged itself. Every invention, every achievement, every human accomplishment begins in imaginatio. No great work was ever created by waiting. It was imagined, assumed, and thus brought into being. You are no different from these creators. Your consciousness is the source. When you assume it is done, you tap into the infinite power of imagination itself. There is no obstacle that can withstand the force of an unwavering assumption. Let us explore the mechanics of this assumption. First, identify your desire. Do not dilute it. Be precise. What is it that you truly want? Next, imagine it completed. Feel it, embody it, live as though it exists. Then, remain in that state without interference. Avoid the temptation to argue with the evidence of your senses. Avoid the voices of doubt and skepticism. The world outside is only a stage. Your mind is the director. The script has been written in the theater of your consciousness. Allow the world to catch up with your inner reality. Persistence is the final key. You may assume, and at first, the outer world may appear indifferent. This is natural. The world operates on the rhythms of old assumptions and past beliefs. It must adjust to your new state. Continue to dwell in the feeling of the fulfilled desire. When sleep comes, carry the state with you into your dreams. Let imagination saturate every fiber of your being. When you wake, resume the state. The world may seem slow to respond, but the law is unerring. Your persistence is the instrument through which the world finally conforms. Do not grow anxious. Do not seek visible evidence prematurely. The world will always obey the inner law of assumption. Let us consider the importance of inner harmony. Your assumption must not be in conflict with your self-image. The self-image is the central assumption of your consciousness. If you believe yourself unworthy, incapable, or unfit for your desire, your assumption will falter. Change your self-concept first. Assume that you are the person who already possesses the desire. Assume your identity as one who lives naturally in the state you wish to experience. When your self-concept aligns with your desire, the world cannot resist. Every event, every encounter, every circumstance begins to flow in perfect accordance with your inner reality. It is also vital to understand that your imagination is sacred. It is not a playground for idle wishes. It is the workshop of creation. Treat it with reverence. Use it deliberately. Enter into the state of the fulfilled desire and remain there with joy and gratitude. Do not allow negativity, complaints, or contrary thoughts to intrude. The world mirrors your inner state precisely. If you cultivate doubt, fear, or resistance, you delay the manifestation. If you dwell in the calm certainty of assumption, The world bends to your will. Some may ask, can all desires be assumed? The answer is yes, for imagination is infinite. However, it must be genuine. Superficial wishes, desires born of comparison or ego alone, often fail because they lack the feeling of reality. Your assumption must be heartfelt. It must resonate deeply within your consciousness. Feel the accomplishment, not just in thought, but in the totality of your being. Let it permeate every cell. Then watch as the outer world responds, aligning with perfect precision. Let us reflect on the truth that the world is obedient. It has no will of its own. It cannot resist the force of consciousness. Every circumstance, every person, every event moves according to your assumption. When you realize this, fear disappears. Worry becomes irrelevant. You walk through life as a master of your inner state. Nothing can disturb the calm, for the foundation of reality rests within you. Assume it is done. Assume the end and live from it. The world, in its infinite obedience, will respond exactly as your consciousness dictates. Remember this principle: the imagination is God within you, and the world is the obedient servant. Your assumptions, your inner states, are the causes. The world outside is the effect. Assume it is done. Dwell in the feeling of fulfillment. Align your self-concept with your desire, and persist with unwavering faith. The world cannot resist you. All events, circumstances, and outcomes will conform to the reality you maintain within. To assume it is done is to step into the role of the creator. It is to know that the outer world, though it appears resistant, is merely a reflection of your inner certainty. Persist, feel, imagine, and live from the end, and you will witness the miraculous obedience of the world to your inner assumption. Now, imagine yourself no longer waiting for life to happen to you, but acting from the certainty that your desire is already fulfilled. Every step you take, every thought you entertain, every word you speak becomes infused with the reality of the assumed state. You begin to see that obstacles are illusions, that resistance is but a shadow created by those who have not yet assumed their own desires. The world only presents limitations to those who believe in limitation. When you fully inhabit the state of fulfillment, every so-called obstacle becomes a stepping stone, a signal guiding you toward the manifestation of your desire. The apparent contradictions, the delays, the difficulties, all of them are whispers encouraging you to persist in assumption, to deepen your inner conviction, to remain faithful to the reality you have imagined. Consider how many spend their lives reacting to circumstances, surrendering their power to what they perceive as real. They ask for proof, for signs, for validation from a world that obeys them only when they stop depending on it. You, however, take a different path. You act from imagination. You do not ask for evidence, you create it internally. And as you do, the outer world, which is nothing more than the echo of your inner state, reshapes itself effortlessly. People behave in ways that support your assumed reality. Opportunities appear as if by magic. Events unfold in perfect NCE, responding to the certainty that exists within you. Nothing can oppose the force of a consciousness that knows its desires are already accomplished. You must learn to treasure your inner state more than anything in the external world. Your emotions, your feelings, your imagination, these are the instruments through which creation flows. Do not sacrifice them for the fleeting appearances of the senses. When a thought of doubt arises, do not engage it. Do not analyze, argue, or reason with it. Simply return to the state of fulfillment. Imagine the scene that would exist if your desire were already achieved. Hear the words, see the surroundings, feel the sensations. Let them become as real as your own heartbeat. In that feeling, in that vividness, the world bends to your consciousness. It cannot resist. Many believe that success, love, or happiness is obtained through struggle, effort, or waiting. They believe that desire must be chased, negotiated with, or earned. But this is the error of the untrained mind. Everything you desire already exists in the unseen realm. It is waiting for you to claim it by assumption. There is no need to struggle with reality. You only need to assume. As you do, the world aligns, and what once seemed distant becomes immediate. Every law, every force, every circumstance moves in obedience to the one who assumes with conviction. To assume it is done is to cut through the illusion of limitation and step into the infinite realm of possibility. Even in the midst of apparent chaos, the principle holds. You may see lack, opposition, or delay, yet these are only surface appearances. They do not define reality. The real reality is within. Your imagination creates a world beyond appearances. To dwell there is to live in the certainty that the end is already accomplished. Let others chase the external. You remain steadfast in the inner vision. This steadfastness is the invisible hand that guides circumstances, shapes people, and orchestrates events in perfect accordance with your assumed state. You are the master of this inner reality and therefore the master of the outer world. Think of every invention, every achievement, every miracle as a testimony to this principle. They were imagined before they became real. They were assumed before they were seen. The minds that created them did not wait for evidence. They did not consult the world. They assumed, and the world obeyed. In the same way, your desires, no matter how vast or improbable they may seem, can be realized when you adopt the same unwavering assumption. There is no limitation in imagination. There is only the question of your faithfulness to it. Persist in feeling the end, and you will see how naturally the world adjusts to your inner state. It is not the intensity of thought alone, but the consistency of assumption that produces results. You must persist quietly, confidently, and joyfully in your inner reality. Let it be the lens through which you perceive life. Do not be moved by appearances, for they are ever-changing and deceptive. Do not be swayed by the opinions of others, for they do not govern your reality. Your inner state is sovereign. When you fully inhabit the feeling of the wish fulfilled, when you live as if nothing else exists, you discover that the world has no power to resist you. Every detail begins to conform. Every circumstance bends. Every event aligns with the state you maintain. Even the smallest assumption, when embraced with sincerity, has the power to shape reality. Do not dismiss minor desires as unimportant, for the law works the same way on every scale. What you consistently feel, imagine, and believe will manifest. The magnitude of your desire matters less than the depth of your assumption. Hold it with certainty, act from the end, and watch how effortlessly the world responds. Your consciousness is the invisible sculptor, and the world is the clay. Shape it as you imagine it. Refuse to accept delay, resistance, or doubt. Persist, and the world will obey. You will find that as you practice this, life becomes a continuous unfolding of miracles. Opportunities appear unexpectedly. People speak the words that you need to hear. Situations resolve themselves in ways that serve your assumed reality. The world becomes a reflection of your inner state, and you come to see that nothing outside of you can limit or control the outcome. Your imagination, your inner assumption, is the only reality that truly matters. When you live from this state, you awaken to a life where nothing can stop the natural flow of manifestation. Even when external circumstances seem contrary, you do not waver. You remain in the state of the wish fulfilled, knowing that the world cannot resist an assumption held with fidelity. You see that all apparent delays are merely part of the invisible orchestration leading to your end. You have entered the domain where the end governs the means. You live from the reality of completion, not the illusion of lack. The world, being obedient, must adjust to the state you maintain, and as you persist, the outer world eventually catches up, presenting evidence that confirms what you have long assumed within. Every desire, every longing, every goal can be brought into existence when you assume its fulfillment. The method is simple, yet profound. Imagine, feel, persist. Let the world outside be the mirror, and your inner state the truth. Do not attempt to force results through struggle, planning, or reasoning. Let your inner conviction be sufficient. Your imagination is infinite, and the world is finite. Therefore, the world must conform. Assume it is done. Live as though it is done. Let nothing outside disturb the inner reality. In this obedience lies the secret to all accomplishment, all happiness, all fulfillment. You are now learning to see life through the eyes of one who knows that the world obeys. You see obstacles as temporary, limitations as illusory, and resistance as meaningless. Every step you take is in alignment with the assumed state. Your actions, words, and choices naturally reflect the end you have embraced. The world, having no will of its own, bends effortlessly to the assumption you maintain. You are no longer a passive participant in life. You are the conscious creator, directing every circumstance through the power of your inner assumption. Even the faintest doubts must be addressed, but not with struggle. Simply return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Let the vision saturate every moment of consciousness. Imagine it vividly, as if you are already living it. Persist until it becomes a state of being. Let the external world fade in importance, for it is only a reflection. Your inner reality is the only reality that commands results. When you live this way, you discover a life where limitations dissolve, where desires are effortlessly realized, and where the world appears as a willing servant to your consciousness. This is the path of true mastery. It is not achieved through force or effort, but through quiet assumption, unwavering faith, and total immersion in the feeling of fulfillment. Your consciousness shapes reality. The world is its obedient expression. Every desire, every dream, every goal can be attained when you understand that the assumption of its fulfillment is the only necessary condition. Persist, dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled, and let the outer world obey. Very well. Let us continue, carrying the understanding deeper, allowing the speech to flow endlessly, as if the audience is being drawn into a living experience of creation itself. Now, as you dwell in this state of fulfilled desire, notice the ease and grace with which life begins to respond. The world, which once seemed rigid and unyielding, softens and bends according to the force of your inner assumption. This is the natural order of things. The outer world is not a master to be convinced, but a servant that obeys without question. You do not compel it, you only remain steadfast in the inner reality, and the manifestation comes. Every event, every encounter, every seemingly random coincidence is orchestrated to confirm the state you have assumed. What you think of as chance is merely the reflection of your inner certainty. Imagine, if you will, a life where every action you take flows effortlessly from the assurance of accomplishment. You do not act from lack, from fear, or from uncertainty. You act from the fullness of being, knowing that the end has already occurred. Decisions become clear, obstacles become opportunities, and challenges transform into guides, showing you the way to the state you already inhabit. The world no longer resists you, for it cannot resist the force of your consciousness. Every situation bends, every person aligns, every circumstance conforms to the reality you have accepted as true. Let us examine the inner mechanics of this law. The mind, when it truly assumes, cease to entertain contradictions. It no longer doubts, it no longer fears, it no longer negotiates with the appearances of the senses. The imagination becomes a vessel of pure creation, and the inner assumption becomes a magnet that draws all outer conditions into harmony with the inner reality. The state of the fulfilled desire is not a fleeting emotion or a superficial thought. It is a living, breathing reality within you, as tangible and certain as the air you breathe. The world outside is compelled to obey this reality because it has no independent will. Many resist this principle because it challenges the habitual way of living through appearances. They want proof first. They want evidence before they act. But the law does not function in reverse. You cannot see before you believe. Belief, or in this case, assumption, is the source of all evidence. The world, being obedient, only yields to the reality you maintain internally. Therefore, cease seeking validation from the outer world. Seek it only within. Assume, persist, and let the external circumstances fall into alignment. The proof will inevitably manifest as the world adjusts to your state. Consider the power of imagination as a tool. It is not a pastime, nor is it a diversion from reality. It is the very force that moves mountains, that shapes civilizations, that brings dreams into existence. When you use it deliberately, with unwavering assumption, it becomes a sculptor of your life. Imagine your desire in full detail, as vividly as possible. See it, feel it, hear it, taste it, live it. Let the imagination saturate your consciousness until it is indistinguishable from reality. Then carry that state everywhere. Walk, talk, breathe, and act as the fulfilled person. In doing so, you initiate the invisible forces that rearrange the outer world into perfect conformity with your inner reality. There is a secret many do not understand. The world cannot resist the certainty of your assumption. Doubts, fears, delays, and obstacles appear only to those who doubt. When you remain steadfast in the assumed state, the outer world cannot contradict it. Even circumstances that appear impossible are compelled to yield to the persistent inner reality. People, events, and conditions adjust themselves to the state you maintain. Your life becomes a mirror, reflecting the richness, abundance, and fulfillment that you have already claimed within. Imagine now that you carry this principle into every facet of life. Relationships, careers, health, wealth, all begin to conform effortlessly. When you assume that the relationship exists as you desire, the right people, the right circumstances, and the right conversations naturally align. When you assume abundance, opportunities appear, doors open, and resources flow. When you assume health, vitality, and energy manifest as the body responds to the assumption of wellness. Everything is subject to the law of assumption. Nothing is outside its reach. The world obeys. Because the inner reality is undeniable and unwavering. Persistence is the key. The outer world may resist momentarily, reflecting old assumptions and past patterns. This is normal, but the law does not fail. Continue to dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Let your consciousness be saturated with the state you desire. Sleep with it, wake with it, breathe it, and move through life as though nothing else exists. Each repetition strengthens the invisible threads that pull the outer world into alignment. Doubts may arise, but you do not engage them. Return to the inner reality with calm, joy, and certainty. In time, the world cannot help but obey. It is also essential to align your self-concept with your desire. The self-image is the foundation of all manifestation. If you see yourself as unworthy, incapable, or undeserving, your assumptions will falter, and the world will reflect this inner limitation. Therefore, assume not only the fulfillment of your desire, but also the identity of the person who naturally possesses it. Live as that person. Speak, act, think, and feel from that state. When your self-concept is in harmony with your desire, resistance disappears. The world cannot contradict a consciousness that knows itself as complete and fulfilled. Even in moments when the senses report lack, you must persist in assumption. The evidence of the senses is not reality. It is only a reflection of previous assumptions. Reality exists first in consciousness. What you assume, what you feel is true, shapes every event, every encounter, and every circumstance. Trust in the inner certainty. The outer world, though it may appear slow to respond, is only waiting for your steadfast assumption to crystallize. As you persist, the veil lifts and the world aligns effortlessly. Think now of the lives of those who achieved greatness. They did not wait for evidence. They assumed. They felt the end as real, and the world obeyed. Every invention, every breakthrough, every extraordinary success began as an inner assumption. The outer world conformed only after the inner reality had been fully realized. This is the same law available to you. There is no distinction between you and those who have mastered the art of assumption. Your consciousness is the same creative force, and the world is equally obedient. Notice the simplicity of the method. No struggle, no coercion, no external effort is required. You assume, you feel, you persist. That is all. Everything else unfolds naturally. Let the imagination do its work, for it is infinite. Let the feeling of fulfillment saturate your consciousness, for it is the signal to the world to obey. Let no outer circumstance distract you. Let no opinion sway you. Your inner state is sovereign. As long as you remain faithful to it, the world cannot resist, and manifestation becomes inevitable. Even the faintest desire, when assumed with sincerity, holds the power to reshape reality. Magnitude matters less than the depth. Persistence of assumption. When the feeling of fulfillment is genuine and complete, the universe must respond. Every event, every coincidence, every interaction aligns with the inner state. Nothing can resist a consciousness that knows itself as already fulfilled. This is the principle that governs all creation, the principle that allows you to live without struggle, without waiting, and without fear. As you continue to dwell in the state of the fulfilled desire, you begin to perceive life differently. You no longer see problems, you see solutions. You no longer see lack, you see opportunity. You no longer see limitation, you see possibility. Your perception transforms because your consciousness transforms. The outer world mirrors this transformation, obeying the assumptions that guide your inner reality. Everything that happens in your life is a reflection of the state you maintain. Therefore, cultivate that state with joy, faith, and persistence. When you fully understand this law, you realize that nothing outside can control you. The world, appearances, and circumstances are all obedient to your inner state. You are the master of your reality. You do not negotiate with life, you assume, and life obeys. Every desire, every goal, every dream is within your reach. It is already yours, waiting for you to claim it by assumption. Live in that reality, act from it, and persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The world, in its infinite obedience, will conform to your see. Attainti. Very well. Let us continue, allowing the ideas to flow endlessly, deepening the understanding of the principle as though the speech has no end. Now, as you remain in the state of the fulfilled desire, notice how effortless life becomes. The mind that assumes its desire as already accomplished no longer struggles with obstacles, for the obstacles exist only for those who doubt. You begin to see that every apparent difficulty, every challenge, every delay is merely a signal to strengthen your inner conviction. Nothing in the external world can oppose you, because your assumption is the cause, and the world is merely the effect. Every circumstance eventually bends to your consciousness, and every event aligns perfectly with the reality you maintain within. It is crucial to understand that the world does not need to be persuaded, coerced, or convinced. It does not resist, it simply reflects. The outer world is a mirror of your inner state, and as long as you persist in the feeling of fulfillment, the reflection adjusts. When you act as though the desire is already yours, your body, mind, and spirit conform to that state. Your words, your gestures, and even your presence carry the certainty of accomplishment. People respond accordingly. Opportunities appear effortlessly. Events unfold naturally. The world obeys not because you demand it, but because your inner reality dictates it. Imagine the life of someone who has mastered this principle. They do not chase. They do not plead. They do not negotiate with reality. They live from the end. They embody the state of completion in every thought, every action, and every feeling. And as a result, everything outside them conforms. Situations that once seemed impossible resolve themselves. People act in ways that support the assumed reality. Circumstances adjust. Doors open. Paths appear. All of this occurs because the inner state is unquestionable, unwavering, and complete. The world is obedient to consciousness, not to effort or struggle. Many waste years attempting to force circumstances into alignment, thinking that action alone is the key. But action without the inner assumption is empty. It produces nothing lasting. When the desire is already assumed as fulfilled, action flows naturally, guided by the inner certainty. Every step you take is in harmony with the unseen forces of creation. You do not push against resistance. You move with the current that has already been established by your inner state. Even the most formidable obstacles are powerless before a consciousness that assumes. Suppose you desire recognition, health, wealth, or love. You do not wait for evidence. You do not negotiate with the outer world. You simply assume it is done. You see yourself living in the state you desire, feel the emotions of fulfillment, and persist in that feeling. The outer world cannot resist. People, circumstances, events, and opportunities align themselves to reflect the inner reality. Resistance appears only when doubt arises, only when the inner conviction wavers. Therefore, strengthen your inner certainty, and all else will follow. Consider the role of imagination in this process. Imagination is the womb of creation. It is the instrument through which reality is formed. When you imagine vividly and assume fully, you plant the seed of manifestation. That seed grows silently, imperceptibly, until the outer world reflects it. Feeling is the fertilizer of that seed. When the imagination is charged with the emotion of fulfillment, the manifestation becomes inevitable. Thoughts alone are insufficient. Feeling, living, and being in the assumed state are essential. This is the secret by which the world obeys the mind that knows. The state of fulfillment must become natural, effortless, and pervasive. You do not act as if, you are as if. Your consciousness becomes saturated with the reality you desire. Sleep carries the state into dreams. Waking life continues the experience seamlessly. You begin to move, speak, and behave as the fulfilled being. In this state, circumstances and people align naturally. The world has no alternative but to obey, because it mirrors the completeness of your inner reality. Persistence is the final indispensable key. At first, the world may seem slow to respond. Old assumptions, past beliefs, and ingrained patterns create the illusion of delay. But these are only temporary. The law of assumption never fails. Continue to inhabit the state of fulfillment. Let the inner reality dominate your consciousness. Do not seek proof or validation from the outer world. The more you persist, the faster the outer world adjusts. Eventually, the evidence appears. Opportunities, resources, and circumstances unfold in perfect accordance with the inner state. The world obeys because the inner state is unwavering. Your self-concept is the foundation upon which all assumptions rest. If you see yourself as unworthy, incapable, or undeserving, your assumptions falter. Change your self-image first. Assume that you are the person who naturally enjoys the state you desire. Live from that identity. Align your thoughts, feelings, and actions with it. The world cannot resist the authority of a consciousness that knows itself as complete. As your self-concept strengthens, your assumptions gain power, and manifestation occurs with greater ease. Even the smallest desires, when assumed with sincerity, have the power to shape reality. It is not the size of the desire that matters. It is the depth of your assumption. When the feeling of fulfillment is genuine, the universe responds. Events, people, and circumstances bend in harmony with the state you maintain. Nothing can resist a consciousness that assumes fully. The law is impartial, exact, and obedient. To understand this is to understand the source of all creation, the secret of all accomplishment, and the pathway to a life free from struggle, limitation, and fear. As you dwell in the state of the fulfilled desire, you begin to perceive life through a new lens. Problems vanish, opportunities abound. Lack is no longer present, abundance flows. Limitations dissolve, possibilities expand. Your perception changes because your consciousness changes. The outer world reflects this inner state, obeying the assumptions that guide it. Life becomes effortless, flowing, and miraculous, and you begin to realize that nothing outside you can resist the certainty within. Even in moments when circumstances appear contrary, you do not waver. The outer world is only a mirror of past assumptions, not a declaration of reality. Your inner state is sovereign, and it governs all outcomes. When you persist in assumption, when you live fully in the state of fulfillment, resistance disappears. People, events, and circumstances adjust, creating a life that matches your inner reality. You become the master, the creator, the orchestrator of your existence. Every desire, no matter how vast, improbable, or impossible it seems, can be realized through assumption. Identify the desire, feel its fulfillment, and persist in the state without doubt. Let the world outside be irrelevant. The outer world is merely a reflection of the inner certainty. Your imagination is infinite, the world is finite. Therefore, the world must obey. Hold the state consistently, act from it naturally, and persist without distraction. Manifestation is inevitable. Even when others do not understand, when circumstances seem delayed, when doubts arise, remain steadfast. Return always to the inner state. Visualize, feel, and live as the fulfilled person. Let every action, every word, every thought flow from this state. The world, being obedient, cannot resist. It rearranges itself in accordance with the assumption you maintain. This is the secret of effortless creation, the law that governs all reality, and the principle that allows you to live free from struggle. You are now awakening to the profound truth that nothing outside of you can limit or obstruct your desires. The outer world is a reflection, obedient to your inner reality. The imagination is the creative force. Feeling is the magnet that draws the outer circumstances into harmony with the inner state. By assuming, persisting, and dwelling in the state of fulfillment, you activate the law. The world becomes a mirror of your consciousness, bending, aligning, and obeying your inner authority. Very well. Let us continue flowing deeper into the experience as though this speech has no end and the audience is fully immersed in the reality of assumption. Now, as you live in the state of the fulfilled desire, you begin to notice the subtle orchestration of events around you. The world, which once appeared chaotic and uncontrollable, now seems to bend effortlessly to your inner reality. Every interaction, every encounter, every seemingly random event is perfectly aligned to confirm the state you assume. This is the natural operation, F consciousness. It does not bargain, it does not negotiate, it simply obeys. When you maintain the feeling of fulfillment, the outer world cannot resist. It must conform, for it is powerless before the authority of your assumption. The law does not concern itself with obstacles, time, or external conditions. These are illusions perceived by those who live by appearances. You, however, live by assumption, by the inner certainty that your desire is already fulfilled. When you act, think, and feel from this state, the world must respond. Your words, your gestures, your presence, all radiate the certainty of fulfillment. People act in accordance with it. Opportunities appear effortlessly, circumstances align, events unfold with perfect precision. The world is obedient because it is the reflection of your consciousness, and consciousness, when unwavering, is irresistible. Imagine the freedom of knowing that nothing outside you can determine your success or happiness. The outer world is merely a mirror, reflecting the state you maintain within. You are no longer dependent on circumstances, on other people, or on conditions. You act from the end, and in doing so, life itself becomes a willing collaborator. Actions flow naturally, choices are clear, and every moment becomes an opportunity to reinforce the assumed reality. You are no longer struggling, hoping, or waiting. You are already the fulfilled being, and the world, being obedient, arranges itself accordingly. Consider the all of feeling in this process. Thought alone is insufficient. Feeling is the force that activates manifestation. When you imagine and feel the end is real, you plant the seed of creation in consciousness. This seed grows silently, imperceptibly, until the outer world reflects it. Every sense becomes alive with the reality of the fulfilled desire. Sight, sound, touch, taste, and emotion all confirm the assumption. The world outside is compelled to respond because it is obedient to the vibratory reality you maintain within. The feeling of fulfillment is the magnet, and the outer circumstances are drawn inexorably toward it. Even when challenges arise, the principle remains unbroken. Obstacles are but reflections of old assumptions. They do not define the reality you assume. Persist in the state of fulfillment. Imagine the completed desire with vivid clarity. Feel it, embody it, and carry it through every moment. Let the outer world adjust at its own pace. The law of assumption is unerring. Doubt, impatience, and worry are the only hindrances, and these must be set aside. As you persist, you will observe how naturally life rearranges itself, how effortlessly events align, and how perfectly the world obeys. Think now of every great achievement, every invention, every extraordinary success. All of these began in imagination, in the assumption of the end. The outer world yielded only after the inner reality was fully realized. This same power is available to you. There is no distinction between you and those who have manifested the extraordinary. Your consciousness, when fully assumed, wields the same creative authority. The world outside cannot resist a mind that knows itself as already fulfilled. All that is required is persistence, vivid imagination, and unwavering feeling. Notice how your self-concept plays a vital role in this process. Your identity is the foundation of all assumptions. If you see yourself as unworthy, incapable, or undeserving, your assumptions will falter. Change your self-concept first. Assume that you are the person who already lives in the state you desire. Let your thoughts, words, and actions align with this identity. When your self-image is in harmony with your desire, the world cannot resist. Resistance dissolves, opportunities flow, and circumstances adjust. Your life becomes a natural reflection of the fulfilled state you maintain internally. Even the smallest, seemingly insignificant desires can be realized through assumption. Magnitude is irrelevant, sincerity is everything. When the feeling of fulfillment is genuine and complete, the universe must respond. Events, people, and circumstances bend in harmony with the state you hold. Nothing can resist a consciousness that assumes fully. This law is impartial, exact, and absolute. To live in accordance with it is to live in freedom, joy, and effortless manifestation. The world obeys because your inner state is sovereign. As you continue to dwell in this state, you begin to perceive life differently. Limitations disappear, lack is no longer recognized, challenges transform into opportunities, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Your perception changes because your consciousness has changed. The outer world mirrors this transformation. Everything you experience, every event, every interaction is a reflection of the inner reality you maintain. Life becomes a continuous unfolding of the fulfillment you assume, and you begin to understand the infinite obedience of the world to your consciousness. Even when external conditions seem contrary, you remain steadfast. The outer world is merely a reflection of old assumptions, not a measure of reality. Your inner state is sovereign, and it governs all outcomes. When you persist in assumption, when you inhabit the feeling of fulfillment, resistance disappears. People, events, and circumstances adjust to mirror your consciousness. You are the creator, the orchestrator, and the master of your reality. Nothing outside of you can resist the certainty within. Every desire, no matter how vast or improbable, is attainable through assumption. Identify the desire, feel its fulfillment, persist in the state without doubt. Let the world outside be irrelevant, for it is merely a mirror. Your imagination is infinite, the world is finite. Therefore, the world must obey. Maintain the state consistently, act from it naturally, and persist without distraction. Manifestation becomes inevitable, and life flows effortlessly, guided by the power of your inner certainty. Notice now how effortless life becomes when you apply this principle continuously. Every decision aligns with your assumed reality. Every action is harmonious with the state you maintain. You no longer struggle against circumstances or push against resistance. Life becomes a series of confirmations, a natural unfolding of events that reflect the inner state. The world bends, adjusts, and obeys. Opportunities, resources, and people veer effortlessly. The outer world is a mirror, and it cannot resist the inner reality you have assumed. Even the faintest doubts must be addressed, but not through struggle or reasoning. Simply return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Imagine it vividly, feel it completely, and live it fully. Let every thought, word, and action radiate the state you desire. The world, being obedient, cannot resist. It rearranges itself to match the assumptions you maintain. This is the secret of effortless creation, the principle that governs all reality, and the law that allows you to live free from struggle, limitation, and fear. You are awakening to the profound truth that nothing outside of you can obstruct your desires. The world is obedient to consciousness. Imagination is the source of all creation. Feeling magnetizes manifestation. By assuming, persisting, and dwelling in the state of fulfillment, you activate the law. The outer world becomes a mirror, bending, aligning, and obeying your inner authority. Every desire, every goal, every dream is within reach when you live from the end, and the world, in its infinite obedience, responds perfectly to your inner certainty. And so, my friends, remember this above all else. The world is not a master, and life is not a struggle. The world obeys the state of your consciousness. Every desire, every dream, every vision you hold is already yours the moment you assume it as done. Do not wait for evidence. Do not bargain with circumstances. Live from the end. Feel it, embody it, persist in it with unwavering faith. Your imagination is not a fantasy. It is the creative force that shapes your reality. As you walk from this moment forward, carry with you the certainty that nothing outside can resist the inner reality you maintain. Let your self-concept reflect the fulfilled being you are. Let your thoughts, words, and actions radiate the state of completion. Trust in the law that governs all creation, for it is absolute, impartial, and obedient. The world will respond, not because you demand it, but because it cannot resist the authority of your assumed state. Assume it is done, and watch the world bend to your imagination. Persist in feeling the end, and Fey itself becomes a willing servant of your consciousness. Every event, Every circumstance, every person you encounter is a reflection of the reality you hold within. Know this: when you live from the end, when you act, feel, and think as the fulfilled being, there is no force that can oppose you. You are the creator, you are the master, you are the fulfilled one. So go forth with confidence, with faith, and with joy. Assume it is done. Persist in the feeling of fulfillment. Live from the end, and watch as the world, in its infinite obedience, brings forth the life you have imagined, the life you have claimed, the life that is already yours. Nothing can stop you when you know that your consciousness shapes reality, and the world obeys the law of your inner certainty.